What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks onto a daytime talk show, expecting a light-hearted chat, and instead finds himself ambushed by a host determined to take him down? In just 29 seconds, Joy Behar made a comment so cutting, so wildly out of line, that it triggered an on-air explosion nobody saw coming. This was never supposed to happen. Denzel Washington arrived at the View Studios that morning, as he had many times before, during press tours. Calm, prepared, gracious. The audience was electric, the panel upbeat, and everyone anticipated the usual easy charm that comes with having one of Hollywood's finest in the hot seat. But from the moment Denzel sat down, something in the room shifted. The air felt charged. Even before a word was spoken, you could sense that this interview was going to be different. Joy Behar had other plans. At first, everything seemed routine. Whoopi Goldberg opened with a warm question about Denzel's latest film. Denzel, as always, responded with grace, sharing behind-the-scenes moments, a few laughs, and reflections on the film's message. The crowd loved it. Then Joy leaned forward, that look in her eye, sharp, familiar to longtime viewers, signaled that something was coming. "So, Denzel," she began, "your new movie deals with some heavy themes about justice and morality. But do you really think you're the right person to lecture America about morality, given some of the roles you've played?" The air went still. Whoopi's eyebrows lifted. Sonny Hostin glanced at Joy. Even the audience froze, unsure if they'd heard right. Denzel smiled, but it wasn't the warm, easy grin fans knew. It was tighter, deliberate. "I don't think I'm lecturing anyone, Joy," he said evenly. "I'm an actor. I tell stories. Sometimes those stories make people uncomfortable, and that's the point." But Joy wasn't finished. "Still," she pressed, her tone sharpening, "don't you think actors like yourself have a responsibility for the messages you put out? You've played criminals, corrupt cops. Doesn't that send the wrong message?" Denzel's voice stayed steady, though firmer now. "It sends the message that I'm doing my job. I play human beings, complex ones. Not every character is supposed to be a saint, Joy. That's called acting." Applause broke out. A few cheers followed, but Joy spoke over it. "I just find it interesting," she continued, "that you choose these roles that glorify violence and then want to tell America how to think about morality. Sounds a little hypocritical, don't you think?" "Joy!" Whoopi tried to interject, but Behar cut her off. "No, I want to hear this," she insisted, "because I think people at home are wondering the same thing. How do you reconcile playing a drug dealer in one film and then trying to act like some kind of moral authority in the next?" Denzel's jaw flexed. The cameras caught it. He was calm, but visibly holding something back. When he finally spoke, his tone was low, measured, but the steel underneath was unmistakable. "First of all, Joy, I've never claimed to be a moral authority. Never once. What I am is an artist who takes his craft seriously. And second, if you think portraying flawed human beings means I'm glorifying them, then maybe you don't understand what storytelling actually is." The crowd reacted, half applause, half nervous laughter. Joy's face flushed. She wasn't used to being pushed back on her own turf. "I understand acting just fine," she snapped. "What I don't understand is the arrogance. You come on shows like this, promote your movies, take the money, but you don't want to be held accountable for the messages you're putting out." "Accountable," Denzel repeated, leaning forward now, his composure cracking just slightly. "Accountable to who, Joy? To you?" The tension was electric. "I've been making films for over 40 years, he continued. "I've worked with the best directors in the world. I've told stories that have moved people, challenged people, made people think. And you're sitting here trying to reduce all of that to some simplistic argument about morality?" Sarah Haynes tried to step in, desperate to defuse the moment. "Maybe we can talk about the film itself." But Joy cut her off. "No, I think this is the film. This is exactly what I'm talking about. The minute someone questions you, you get defensive. You shut down. That's privilege, Denzel. That's celebrity privilege. The word landed like a bomb. Privilege. Said to a man who grew up in Mount Vernon, New York, who worked his way up from nothing, who earned every inch of success through discipline and craft. Denzel leaned back. Silence. Then, slowly, deliberately, he spoke. Privilege. His voice was quieter now, but colder. You want to talk to me about privilege, Joy? He paused. The audience barely breathed. Real privilege, he said, is sitting behind that desk, asking gotcha questions, trying to tear down people who've actually done something with their lives, and calling it journalism. Real privilege is making a living off of other people's work and then pretending you're somehow above it all. The studio erupted. Some clapped, others gasped, but everyone knew. This moment would be replayed, dissected, and remembered for years to come. The audience gasped. This wasn't the calm, measured Denzel Washington they were used to seeing. This was a man who had been pushed too far. Joy's face flushed red. Excuse me? How dare you— No! Denzel cut in, his voice rising, steady but seething. How dare you? The room fell silent. You invited me here, he continued, and I came in good faith, to talk about my work, to connect with your audience, and from the second I sat down, you've been trying to bait me. For what, ratings? A viral clip? Is that what this is really about? Whoopi tried to step in. Denzel, maybe we should— But it was too late. Neither Denzel nor Joy was backing down now. This is my show, Joy shot back, pointing across the table. And I'll ask whatever questions I want to ask. If you can't handle being challenged, maybe you shouldn't agree to interviews. Challenge me all you want, Denzel said, his tone controlled but cutting. But don't insult my intelligence. Don't sit there pretending to be some moral authority when all you're doing is chasing controversy. There's a difference between asking a hard question and launching an attack, Joy. And you know it. An attack? Joy's voice climbed, incredulous. You think this is an attack? I'm asking you legitimate questions about your career, your choices. No. Denzel interrupted. You're trying to put me in a box. You came in here with your mind made up, trying to make me fit your little narrative. I'm not going to play that game. The studio audience was frozen. Some looked shocked, others torn between outrage and admiration. The rest of the panel sat in stunned silence, unsure how to step in. Then Joy pushed back from the table and stood. You know what? If you're going to sit here and attack me on my own show, I'm not attacking you, Denzel said, standing too, towering over her. I'm defending myself from your accusations. There's a difference. This is unbelievable, Joy said, gesturing toward the cameras. Absolutely unbelievable. We invite someone here as a guest. We treat them with respect. Respect? Denzel's voice thundered through the studio. You call that respect? From the moment I sat down, you've been trying to tear me down, questioning my integrity, my choices, my character. And when I push back, suddenly I'm the problem. Whoopi stood up, holding her hands out. Okay. Everybody just take a breath. No, Whoopi, Denzel said, his voice lowering again, heavy with controlled anger. I respect you, I do, but I'm not going to sit here and be disrespected. I've earned the right to be treated with basic courtesy. Joy crossed her arms tightly. Oh, now you're playing the victim. Really? That was it? The breaking point. You could see it in Denzel's eyes. Something snapped. His expression hardened. His shoulders squared. I'm done, he said quietly. He reached up and unclipped his microphone. The metallic click echoed through the silent studio. I came here to talk about my work, he said, to have a real conversation. But this isn't a conversation. It's an ambush. Denzel, wait. Sarah Haynes stood, her voice pleading. Maybe we can start over. He shook his head slowly. There's nothing to start over. This is who she is. He pointed at Joy. And I'm not going to pretend it's okay. Joy's face was crimson now. Fine, leave. Walk out like a child throwing a tantrum. That's real mature. Denzel paused at the edge of the set, then turned back toward her. The camera caught his face perfectly. Calm, composed, devastating. You know what the sad thing is, Joy? He said quietly. You had a chance to have a real conversation. About art, about storytelling, about what actually matters. But you were more interested in creating drama. And that says everything about you, and nothing about me. Get out! Joy snapped, her voice shaking with fury. Get out of my studio. Gladly, Denzel replied. He took one last look around the silent room. I hope whatever you got out of this was worth it. He walked off the set. The audience sat in stunned silence. A few people began to clap, then hesitated, unsure if it was appropriate. The camera stayed on Joy. Her jaw was tight, her hands trembling slightly, as she tried to regain control. Whoopi finally spoke. Well, we're gonna take a break. But before the director could cut to commercial, Joy slammed her stack of cue cards onto the table. This is ridiculous, she said, her voice shaking. Absolutely ridiculous. We ask a few tough questions and he acts like he's being attacked. This is exactly what I was talking about. Celebrity egos. Sunny Hostin spoke gently, her tone careful. Joy, I think maybe those questions came across differently than you intended. Don't, Joy snapped. Don't you dare take his side right now. I'm not taking anyone's side, Sunny said softly. I'm just saying. Maybe we could have approached it differently. Joy looked around the table, her eyes wide with disbelief. Oh, so now you're all against me? Is that what this is? The set was chaos. Crew members whispered off camera. The control room scrambled. And as the screen finally faded to black, the sound of the audience's uneasy murmuring filled the air. Nobody's against you, Whoopi said firmly, her tone leaving no room for argument. But we need to go to commercial right now. The camera cut away, but the damage was already done. In the control room, producers were panicking. In the studio, the audience sat frozen, unsure if they'd just witnessed television or a public breakdown. And somewhere in the building, Denzel Washington was quietly walking out, his dignity intact, but his patience completely drained. What made the moment so explosive wasn't just the clash itself. It was what it revealed. Joy Behar, a woman who'd built her career on being outspoken and unfiltered, had completely lost composure the second someone pushed back. A host who prided herself on asking tough questions suddenly couldn't handle being questioned herself. And across from her sat Denzel Washington, a man with every right to carry himself with arrogance. But instead, he arrived calm, humble, and professional. Yet all that was thrown back in his face. Everyone in that studio knew it. Everyone watching at home knew it. This wasn't a celebrity meltdown. It was a man who'd been baited, humiliated, and finally decided he wasn't going to let himself be used for entertainment. In the green room before leaving, Denzel paused to speak with a producer. His voice was steady, almost quiet. The anger was gone. I don't regret walking out, he said. I regret that it came to that. But I'm not going to sit there and be someone's punching bag for ratings. Back in the studio, chaos reigned. Joy was furious, insisting she'd done nothing wrong. The other hosts tried to smooth things over, but the tension hung in the air like smoke. When they returned from commercial, Whoopi addressed the audience with a forced smile. Well, that was intense, she said. Sometimes things get heated, and that's okay. We're all passionate people here. But the audience wasn't buying it. Their faces said it all. They'd seen something real, raw, and ugly. No amount of spin could erase it. Joy tried to push through the next segment, but her voice trembled. Every few minutes she threw in a jab about celebrities who can't take criticism, about people who think they're too important to be questioned. She couldn't let it go. Meanwhile, Denzel's car was already pulling away from the studio. He stared out the window, silent, as his phone buzzed with calls from his publicist, from friends, from producers wanting to know what happened. He didn't answer any of them. He just needed a moment to breathe, to process. Here's what made it so remarkable. Denzel Washington didn't need the view. He didn't need the platform, the audience, or the validation. He was doing them a favor by showing up. And Joy Behar forgot that. She got so caught up trying to prove how tough she was that she forgot basic respect. It was a masterclass in how not to conduct an interview. You can challenge your guest, yes. But the second you cross the line from questioning to humiliation, you've lost the point. Joy crossed it within the first 5 minutes. Back on set, Sarah Haynes tried to lighten the mood, but it was pointless. The laughter sounded forced. The smiles didn't reach anyone's eyes. Everyone was still thinking about the empty chair where Denzel had been sitting. During the next commercial break, the tension at the table boiled over. The cameras were off, but their body language told the story. Whoopi gesturing sharply, Joy shaking her head defensively, Sunny and Sarah exchanging uneasy glances. This wasn't just about one bad moment. It was about a pattern. A host who had grown too comfortable mistaking provocation for journalism, and now she'd finally crossed the wrong guest. When the show returned, Joy made a brief statement. Look, sometimes interviews get contentious. That's the nature of live TV, she said coolly. I stand by my questions. I think they were fair, and if Mr. Washington couldn't handle them, that's on him. A few polite claps, mostly silence. Everyone had seen what happened. What was supposed to be a light-hearted promotional chat had turned into a train wreck viewed by millions. And when the dust settled, the one person walking away with his reputation untouched wasn't the host who tried to stir drama. It was the guest who refused to play along. Denzel Washington didn't raise his voice. He didn't throw shade. He simply refused to be disrespected. And when faced with the choice between staying for the spectacle or walking out with his dignity, he didn't hesitate. That's what made the moment unforgettable. It wasn't about ego. It wasn't about pride. It was about self-respect, and a reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is simply stand up, say nothing, and walk away. When the credits rolled that day, the usual laughter and chatter were gone. The studio felt colder, quieter. Everyone knew they'd just witnessed a turning point, one that said more about Joy Behar than it ever would about Denzel Washington. They thanked the audience, and the cameras finally cut off. But the real conversation was only just beginning. Within hours, social media erupted. Clips of the exchange flooded every platform, replayed and dissected from every angle. Hashtags trended. Comment sections exploded. Some defended Joy, insisting she was simply doing her job, but far more sided with Denzel, arguing that there's a clear line between asking tough questions and crossing into disrespect. And Joy had bulldozed right over it. Industry voices began chiming in. Actors, directors, and journalists shared their own stories of uncomfortable interviews, moments when hosts seemed more focused on provocation than authenticity. It wasn't just about this one clash anymore. It became a broader conversation about media ethics, professionalism, and the difference between curiosity and confrontation. Through it all, Denzel stayed silent. No statements, no interviews, no tweets. He didn't need to defend himself. He already had. His calm composure, his quiet dignity in that moment, said more than any PR response ever could. That silence became its own message. What happened on The View evolved into something larger than a talk show controversy. It became a lesson, a study in grace under fire. Denzel didn't yell. He didn't lash out. He didn't turn it into a spectacle. He simply stood his ground with clarity, with conviction, and then walked away. That takes strength. The kind of strength that doesn't need applause to prove itself. And it reminded everyone watching why Denzel Washington has remained one of the most respected figures in Hollywood, because his integrity is just as formidable as his talent. Joy Behar learned a painful truth that day. Not everyone who sits across from you is there to chase relevance. Some have already earned their place. Some deserve the respect their work commands. And when you try to make someone like that look small, you only end up shrinking yourself. The View moved on, of course. It always does. But something shifted that day. The audience saw behind the curtain. They saw what happens when staged provocation collides with authentic integrity, and who comes out standing taller. It wasn't the host behind the desk, cushioned by co-hosts and commercial breaks. It was the guest who refused to be baited, who defended himself with composure and knew exactly when to say, enough. Because this moment wasn't just about an argument. It was about respect, about professionalism, about knowing your worth, and refusing to let anyone chip away at it, even on live television. And in that regard, Denzel Washington delivered a masterclass. He proved that you don't have to tolerate disrespect just because you're in the spotlight. You don't have to smile through humiliation for the sake of showbiz. You can stand tall, stay calm, and walk away with your head high, knowing that dignity outlasts every headline. That's the real story. Not that a celebrity walked off a talk show, but that a man refused to let someone diminish him and did it with complete self-control. 29 seconds. That's all it took for Joy Behar to make the remark that set everything in motion. But it was what followed. Every pause, every choice, every quiet act of restraint that turned this into a moment people will remember for years. Because respect isn't demanded. It's earned. And while Joy forgot that, Denzel never did. And that made all the difference.